There has been a fire alarm reported in the building. There has been a fire alarm reported in the building. Please proceed to the stairway and exit the building. Do not.
Oh, that made for a fun day yesterday morning. Oh, it was so cold outside. It was so cold. I hadn't had my hands feel that numb in a while. Fire trucks showing up at the state capitol building after a fire alarm inside. For some reason I knew yesterday was going to be a weird one. Not just because the state legislature was back in town, but just the way things were all over the place. Just, news issue, coming at you. What are you going to do? It's the WMAY morning news feed. I'm Greg Bishop, and I put myself out there to cover all of these things that happen as best as I can as one person in the spectrum of media, and bringing you what some of the top things that are happening in the past 24 hours. And, of course, the state legislature being in session was one of them. We'll talk about some of the issues here on the WMAY morning news feed. 7:13. Again, I'm Greg Bishop. You can contact me, bishoponair@gmail.com. Live and local, you can call in at 217-629-7970. So definitely want to hear from you. Again, 217-629-7970. So let's get into it. You've got the Statehouse that was called into session Wednesday. They were supposed to start in the Senate at 11 and the House at noon. That did not happen. They did not start on time. And there were a couple of issues that were popping up, and I think COVID was one of them. I heard issues about people not being able to get their tests processed in time. I heard people saying that there weren't enough senators to have a quorum, and that quorum is necessary for them to actually open session. So this is after they canceled Tuesday and Thursday, but they were able to get enough senators, I guess, in place to be able to have session and move forward that way. But some of the things that were brought up seemed to be a little last minute, especially with the legislature not being on time. One of the major issues was this idea of judicial sub-circuits. And that's something that we'll touch on here in a moment. But before they got started with all of that, State House Republicans, they blasted Democrats for what they said was measures that make Illinois less safe. So the story, again, is Republican lawmakers push to repeal large sweeping criminal justice legislation. So a group of Illinois lawmakers, they say that legislation that was passed last year is what's behind a spike in crime statewide. The Reimagining Public Safety Act began in late January. It's including police and sentencing reforms and introduced by the Legislative Black Caucus. State Representative Tony McCombie, she criticized the efforts and said that it's doing more harm than good.
Illinois Democrats will not allow penalty enhancements or punish criminals. Illinois Democrats will only punish police and threaten our public safety.
So you've also got the likes of State Representative Patrick Windhorst, who also took part in a news conference yesterday. He said crime's on the rise because criminals don't fear consequences, especially when you've got some lax laws that are put in place. Here's Patrick Windhorst.
So we have seen basically for the last 5 or 6 years a stripping away of the tools of the criminal justice system that make crime unattractive.
So that was just one issue that Republicans highlighted early in the day. And again, the House was supposed to start at noon. The Senate was supposed to start at 11. Neither came in on time. Actually, it was hours and hours and hours before they actually came into session. But one thing that they were doing behind the scenes, apparently, was finishing up last minute judicial sub-districts, sub-circuits. And this is something that Republicans said they were left out of and Democrats moving forward with, very similar and reminiscent of last year's redistricting efforts where Democrats, they held some hearings and you had groups saying, hold on, you're going too fast. Well, we heard the same types of things as well yesterday from all sides here. So yesterday, you've got the sub-districts conversation that really kind of, again, they proposed something in mid-December, But then Monday, they put out a new proposal. And then Tuesday, they put out a new proposal. And then Wednesday, they actually amended it twice. And then they didn't even go with the House bill. They went with a Senate bill. And so you can see how the balls being moved around all over the place, especially when lawmakers are going late, it can be confusing, let alone for the journalists. What about the taxpayers out there that are having to live under these policies that state lawmakers pass? So Democratic State Representative Elizabeth Hernandez yesterday, she said that creating the judicial subcircuits in some more urban settings, it will bring about better representation on the bench.
These subcircuits will provide additional opportunities for diversity on the bench in these circuits.
So again, Democrats released one proposal last month. They updated that Monday. They then amended it twice again before actually passing it yesterday. And here's what State Representative Tim Butler had to say about the entire process as it played out yesterday and over the past few days.
This is politics at its worst form. This is a complete power grab by you, the supermajority, and the governor to completely redo the court system in your little progressive ways. And it's really a shame that this is how you're conducting it.
So they were late to even start session. They didn't post committee hearings yesterday. They revised the posting requirements and posted committee hearings midday yesterday. And then they both, the House and the Senate, held subject matter committee hearings about the same issue. So while the House was having that debate in their committee, you had the Senate having a debate in their committee at the same time. And Senate President Don Harmon, he actually said that, it's going to help make for more diverse judiciary, but he says that it's also going to essentially allow for just better representation, more diversity. And he says there's other considerations that are at play here as well when it comes to making these subdistricts.
Certainly partisanship is a component that is considered in evaluating the construction of subcircuits.
State's Senate Minority Leader Dan McConkey, he said that he worries what that ultimately means for the judiciary that's supposed to be independent.
It's one thing to draw districts and so forth for partisan sake in legislative districts and such, but I think the judiciary, I just think it really is concerning.
So ultimately,
where this is going.
You had the Senate go into session, and they took up their bill, and then they had to send it over to the House, and the House ultimately took it up later, and they didn't wrap up until late in the evening. And when they wrapped up, the Senate said, don't expect to come back next week. We'll see you in another Zoom meeting. And the House announced that next week is canceled. So the state legislature, unclear when they're going to come back. But one thing they did not do, actually a bunch of things they didn't do. One thing is they didn't select a new legislative inspector general. Today's the last day for legislative inspector general Carol Pope. She told lawmakers more than 6 months ago, the office is a paper tiger. They're not doing strong ethics reforms, and she's done being the legislative inspector general, again, calling it a paper tiger. She gave them notice more than 6 months ago. Her original date to leave was December 15th. It's now January 6th, and the Illinois legislative leaders have not dealt with the vacancy of the legislative inspector general, the watchdog, who's supposed to field complaints about wrongdoing from state lawmakers and their staff. So they didn't take care of that when they were in session. Meaning you've got that issue now unresolved, and they're not going to come back for the foreseeable future. So that means there's going to be a continued vacancy there. Something else they didn't do, they didn't address the $4.5 billion of unpaid unemployment insurance benefits, the debt that's owed to the federal government. And that interest is racking up. $100 million it could be if it's not addressed this year. And if it's not addressed, it's going to mean higher taxes on employers and lower benefits for the unemployed. So lawmakers didn't address that at all. But when it comes to unpaid bills, you got the comptroller making this announcement yesterday that Illinois has finally paid off $2 billion it took in a Federal Reserve loan program for COVID relief. But Illinois was an outlier in taking that loan program. I think the only other governmental body that took that during COVID, other than Illinois, was the subway system over in New York, which is a mess. So Illinois finally paying its final payment of $302 million, paid back $2 billion that it borrowed in 2020, and the comptroller says that's going to save about $82 million in interest payments. But again, Illinois was one of the outliers that actually took that loan program, and something that I think, it shows Illinois' financial position and the ability to pay its bills on time without any kind of interceding by federal taxpayers. So you've got that as well playing out. Something else lawmakers didn't address yesterday, the continued outbound migration. We've got another report out, this time from U-Haul, showing that the state of Illinois once again witnessed one of the largest net losses of one-way moving trucks leaving the state. Illinois has held down the 49th or 50th spot since 2015 on U-Haul's index. A lot of people are headed towards Florida and other states as well. We've heard people moving to Texas, Arizona, Indiana. So these are all the places that people are moving out of Illinois, and U-Haul data shows that. All right, it is the WMAY morning news feed, and that is kind of a review of what did and did not happen yesterday at the Illinois Statehouse here on